शिष्य राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जाय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरन मोहन जू की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत साई महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गौरकिशोर बाबाजी महाराज की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्ट श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जाय। श्री रूप नो गौरीय गुरु वर्ग की जाय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जाय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जाय। नाम चय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जाय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल कोरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जाय। सर्व अभिष्ट विदत गिरिराज महाराज की जाय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड यमुना गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। श्री विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर की जाय। सारार्थ-darśinī वृत्ति की जाय। ग्रंथराज Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam की जाय. Today we're reading about Kāliya Damana Leela की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूत हृदयमुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी। तवैवास्मि तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीन अपराधलक्ष्य क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Haribol, everybody. So right now it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I tried going live, but internet just was not working, and I didn't get a chance to pre-record a video yesterday. So I'm pre-recording this video now. So this is the previous day, it's August 3rd, and I'm going to make it go live tomorrow, August 4th, while I'm on the train to Kolkata. I'm leaving tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be on a train to Kolkata, and then from Kolkata, I'll be on a train to Vrindavan. I arrive in Vrindavan on the 5th at, I think, 2 p.m., something like that. So yeah, while you're watching this and the day after that, I'm on the train. I'm not sure if I'll be able to pre-record twice today. We'll see. But today's going to be a busy day for me. All right, so let's begin. Krishna chastises the serpent Kāliya. Shri Shuka Uvacha Viloka Dushitam Krishnam Krishna Krishna Hina Vibhu Tasya Vishuddhiman Anvichan Sarpam Tam Uddhavasayat. Shukadev Goswami said, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing that the Yamuna river had been contaminated by the black snake Kāliya, desired to purify the river, and thus the Lord banished him from it. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary, Vritti, by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. This chapter describes Shri Krishna's pastime of subduing the serpent Kāliya, showing pleasure with the prayers of the Nagapatnis, and banishing Kāliya from the river Yamuna. In this verse, Kṛṣṇam refers to the Yamuna. Seeing how Kāliya was polluting the Yamuna with poison, Krishna decided to banish that black snake. Shri Rajovacha Katam antar jale gadhe nyagrihnad bhagavanahim savai bahu yugavasam yatasid viprakatyatam. King Parikshit inquired, O learned sage, please explain how the Supreme Personality of Godhead chastised the serpent Kāliya within the unfathomable waters of the Yamuna, and how it was that Kāliya had been living there for so many ages. So how did the Supreme Lord chastise the serpent Kāliya? And how was it that Kāliya had been living there in the Yamuna for so long? Commentary. O learned sage, please tell how Kāliya was able to live there for so many yugas. I'm just going to read from here. We know what the meter is. Brahman Bhagavatastasya Bhumna Swachandavartina Gopalo Dharacharitam Kastripyetamritam Jusham. O Brahman, the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead freely acts according to his own desires. Who could be satiated when hearing the nectar of the magnanimous pastimes he performed as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan? Commentary. Gopala Uddara Charitam means the magnanimous, the Uddara pastimes of Krishna, the cowherd boy. However, the word go can also refer to the senses of the devotees. The word Gopal then means one who nourishes the senses of the devotees. The word Udar also means giving happiness. Thus, the phrase Gopala Udara Charitam can mean the pastimes of Gopal Krishna bring joy and nourish the senses of the devotees. King Parikshit said, "Who could ever be satiated when tasting Krishna's pastimes, which satisfy the senses of the heart? Which satisfy the senses of the hearer and bring joy to the heart." Shri Shuka Uvacha Kalindyam Kaliyasyasid Radha Kashchir Vishagnina Shrapyamana Payayasmin Patantu Parighakaga. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, within the river Kalindi that's the Yamuna. Within the river Kalindi, Yamuna, was a lake inhabited by the serpent Kāliya, whose fiery poison constantly heated and boiled its waters. Indeed, the vapors thus created were so poisonous that birds flying over the contaminated lake would fall down into it. Commentary. According to Sri Harivangsha, the Kāliya lake was about 1 yojana wide, that's 8 miles, and situated in the southern part of the Yamuna, apart from the main current of the river. Otherwise, the poisonous vapors of the lake, which were boiling hot, would have troubled the residents of Mathura and other places farther away. Viprushmata vishadormi marutena bhimarshita mriyante tiragayasya praninas tirajangama. The winds blowing over that deadly lake carried droplets of water to the shore. Simply by coming in contact with that poisonous breeze, all vegetation and creatures on the shore died. Commentary. Moving and non-moving creatures, such as trees, they died just by contacting the poisonous breeze, which carried droplets of water from that deadly lake. 6. Tam chandavega vishaviryam avekṣatena dushtam nadim chakala samyamanavatara Kṛṣṇa kadamba madiruhya tato titungam aspurtya gada rasana nyapatad vishodhe. Lord Krishna saw how the Kāliya serpent had polluted the Yamuna river with his terribly powerful poison. Since Krishna had descended from the spiritual world specifically to subdue envious demons, the Lord immediately climbed on top of a very high kadamba tree and prepared himself for battle. He tightened his belt, slapped his arms, and then jumped into the poisonous water. Oh, I didn't read... Okay, I'm going to do this right now. Well, no, let's first read this commentary and then I'll do it. Commentary. The Purana states that only the Kadamba tree on the shore of the Yamuna remained unaffected by the poison of Kāliya because Garuda once sat in the tree drinking some nectar. The Kadamba tree lived with the hope of being blessed by the touch of Krishna's lotus feet in the future. I'm really sorry, guys. I forgot to do a recap of the previous reading. I meant to do that at the beginning and then I just spaced it out. Because now we don't have the context. I'm just going to go to the library right now. Otherwise, what I could do okay, I'm just going to read from here. So this is what happened beforehand, just so that we get the context. One day, Balaram didn't accompany Krishna and the Gopas to the forest. On that day, the cows and the gopas went to the Yamuna to drink water. As soon as they drank water, all the boys became lifeless. Powerful Kṛṣṇa immediately revived all of them with his glance. It was Kāliya, a gigantic and envious snake that had poisoned the waters of the Yamuna, which boiled as a result. Even the birds flying across were affected, and all moving and non-moving creatures of the river had died. Kṛṣṇa then tightened his waist belt to prepare for a battle with Kāliya. He climbed on the top of a kadamba tree, jumped into the lake adjoining Yamuna, and fearlessly sported in the waters. Okay, so now we have some context. Where are we? Yeah, we have to go back. Okay, so that kadamba tree that Kṛṣṇa jumped off with, that is still there in Vrindavan, lived with the hope of being blessed by the touch of Kṛṣṇa's lotus feet in the future. Sarparada Purusha Saranipatave. Sarparada Purusha Saranipatavega Sankshobhito Raga Vishochvasitamburashi Paryak Pluto Vishakashaya Bhibhashanormir Dhavan Dhanu Shatamanantama Palasya King Tat. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead landed in the Serpent's Lake, the snakes there became extremely agitated and began breathing heavily, further polluting it with volumes of poison. The force of the Lord's entrance into the lake caused it to overflow on all sides, and poisonous, fearsome waves flooded the surrounding lands up to a distance of 100 bow lengths. This is not at all amazing, however, for the Supreme Lord possesses infinite strength. Commentary. The force of Kṛṣṇa's jumping from the tree into the Yamuna created huge waves, which were 400 hands high and flooding all directions. Those fearful waves were colored reddish-yellow from the poison of the agitated snakes. Whoa. The word kashaya also means a thick the word kashaya also means a thick potion, according to Kshiraswami, a commentator on the Amar Kosh dictionary. That's really scary. Verse 8. Tasyara devi harato bhujadanda ghurna vargoshamanga varavarana vikramasya ashruta tatsva sadana bhibhavang niriksha chakshu shrava samasarat tam amrishyamana. Kṛṣṇa began sporting in Kāliya's lake like a lordly elephant, swirling his mighty arms and making the water resound in various ways. When Kāliya heard these sounds, he understood that someone was trespassing in his lake. The serpent could not tolerate this and immediately came forward. Commentary. Kṛṣṇa played in the water by swimming and producing wonderful musical sounds simply by splashing the water with his hands and arms. As Kṛṣṇa churned the water with his mighty arms, a thunderous roar arose. Upon hearing these sounds, Kāliya concluded that there must be some trespasser in his lake. The snake could not bear this, so he immediately came forward. 9. Tang prekshaniya sukumara ghanavadatam Śrīvatsapita vasanam smita sundarasyam Kridantama pratibhayam Kamalodarangrim Sandasya marma surusha bhujaya chachada. Kāliya saw that Sri Kṛṣṇa, who wore yellow silken garments, was very delicate. His attractive body shining like a glowing white cloud, his chest bearing the mark of Śrīvatsa, his face smiling beautifully, and his feet resembling the whorl of a lotus flower. The Lord was playing fearlessly in the water. Despite his wonderful appearance, the envious Kāliya furiously bit him on the chest and then completely enwrapped him in his coils. Commentary. This verse shows that Kṛṣṇa looked very beautiful, his body glowing like a spotless white cloud. But he appeared just the opposite to the enraged Kāliya. Tang naga bhoga parivittam adrishta cheshtam alokya tat priya sakha pashupa brisharta Kṛṣṇer pitatma suhridarta kalatra kama dukhanushoka bhayamuda dukhanushoka bhayamuda dhiyo nipetu. When the members of the cowherd community who had accepted Kṛṣṇa as their dearmost friend saw him enveloped in the snake's coils motionless, they were greatly disturbed. They had offered Kṛṣṇa everything, their very selves, their families, their wealth, wives, and all pleasures. At the sight of the Lord in the clutches of the Kāliya snake, their intelligence became deranged by grief, lamentation, and fear, and thus they fell to the ground. Commentary. Some cowherd men and farmers tending the grains in the fields nearby quickly ran there. They had offered everything for Kṛṣṇa's pleasure, including their wives and friends. Verse 11. Gava vrisha vatsatarya gradamana sudukhita Kṛṣṇe nyaste kṣana bhita rudantya ivatastire. The cows, bulls, and female calves, in great distress, called out piteously to Kṛṣṇa. Fixing their eyes on him, they stood still in fear, as if ready to cry, but too shocked to shed tears. Commentary. Even the cows see how much distress they're feeling. Calling out piteously to Kṛṣṇa, fixing their eyes on him, they stood still in fear, as if ready to cry, but too shocked to shed tears. See how much emotion the cows, calves, and bulls have for Kṛṣṇa. Commentary. Because the water in their eyes had dried up from fear, the cows, bulls, and female calves could not really weep. Thus they are described as if ready to cry. Ata vraje mahotpatas trividha hyati daruna utpetur bhuvi divyatma nyasanna bhayasangshinaha. In the Vrindavan area, there then arose all three types of fearful omens, those on the earth, those in the sky, and those in the bodies of living creatures, which announced imminent danger. Commentary. 3 inauspicious signs appeared in Vraj: earthquakes on the earth, meteors falling in the sky, and shivering in the bodies of men, along with twitching of the left eye. Though there can be nothing inauspicious for the Lord, in order to indicate the lamentation of the inhabitants of Vraj, the demigods in charge of earthquakes and other disturbances did this. Or being attracted to the sweet and intimate Madhurya mood of Vraj, the demigods, out of affection for Kṛṣṇa, wanted to cover his Aishwarya, his majestic opulence, so they produced various omens indicating misfortune for Kṛṣṇa. Tam alaksha bhayodvigna gopananda purogama vina ramena ga Kṛṣṇam gyatva chara yitum gatam tardu nimittar nidhanam matva praptam atarvidha tat pranastam manaskaste dukha shoka bhayatura Abala Vrindavanita Sarvenga Pashuvrittaya Nirjagmur Gokulardina Kṛṣṇa-darśana lalasa. Seeing the inauspicious omens, Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men were fearful, for they knew that Kṛṣṇa had gone to herd the cows that day without his elder brother Balaram. Because they had dedicated their minds to Kṛṣṇa, accepting him as their very life, they were unaware of his great power and opulence. Thus they concluded that the inauspicious omens indicated he had met with death, and they were overcome with grief, lamentation, and fear. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the children, women, and elderly persons, thought of Kṛṣṇa just as a cow thinks of her helpless young calf, and thus these poor suffering people rushed out of the village, intent upon finding him. Seeing the inauspicious omens, Nanda Maharaj and other inhabitants rushed out of the village of Gokul. This is described in 3 verses. Observing the omens, the Vrajavasis thought Kṛṣṇa had died. But how can God die? The word nidhana also means a great treasure. Indeed, Kṛṣṇa had obtained the great treasure of a joyful sport in the Yamuna. The Vrajavasis were behaving just as an affectionate cow does toward her calf. Overwhelmed with fear and unhappiness, they rushed out of Gokul in great anxiety. 16. Tangstata kataran viksha Bhagavan Madhavo bala prahasya kinchano vacha prabhavagyo nujasyasa. The Supreme Lord Balaram, the master of all transcendental knowledge, smiled and said nothing when he saw the residents of Vrindavan in such distress, since he understood the extraordinary power of his younger brother. Commentary. According to Harivangsha, the word Madhav means master of the Dhava. So Madhav means master, Dhava of the intelligence, Ma. Balaram is described here as the master of intelligence because he knew the power of Kṛṣṇa's Lila Shakti. Though Balaram had the greatest affection for his younger brother, he understood that Kṛṣṇa desired to cover his opulence with his Lila Shakti. Therefore, Balaram prevented Nanda and others from drowning themselves in the Yamuna out of grief. Balaram was laughing because he thought, Kṛṣṇa never cares to play with me in my form of Sheshnag, but now he is playing with this common mundane snake named Kāliya. That's funny, Balaram's feeling jealous of Kāliya. Remembering Kṛṣṇa's pastimes as an ordinary mortal, Balaram smiled and said nothing, though the situation was beyond tolerance. However, when Balaram smiled, the Vrajavasis forgot their fear and lamentation and felt that nothing unfortunate would happen. Filling with the joy of Balaram's smile, they no longer desired to give up their lives. Ten Viśvanātha Kṛṣṇam suchittaya padai Bhagava Lakshanar Jagmo Padavya Yamuna Tatam. The residents hurried toward the banks of the Yamuna in search of their dearmost Kṛṣṇa, following the path marked by his footprints, which bore the unique signs of the personality of Godhead. Commentary. The Vrajavasis followed the path marked by Kṛṣṇa's footprints, which bore the unique symbols of the Lord's conch, disc, and goad. Te tatra tatrabja yavankushangshani dvajopapanani padani vishpate marge kavam anya padantarantare nirikshamana yayurangar satvara. The footprints of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the master of the entire cowherd community, were marked with the lotus flower, barley corn, elephant goad, thunderbolt, and flag. My dear King Parikshit, seeing his footprints on the path among the cow's hoofprints, the residents of Vrindavan rushed along in great haste. Commentary. This verse describes how the Vrajavasis recognized Kṛṣṇa's footprints. Vishpate means of the master of the Vaishyas, the cowherd community, and refers to Kṛṣṇa. Ignoring the cow's hoofprints, They exclusively followed the footprints of Kṛṣṇa. This verse hints of the discerning yogi who follows the path of the Vedas in pursuance of the highest truth while rejecting all illusory appearances of truth. Antarhade bhujagabhoga paritamarat Krishnam niriham upalabhya jalashayante Gopangscha murda dishanam parita pashungscha sankrandata paramakashmalamapurarta. As they hurried along the path to the bank of the Yamuna River, they saw from a distance that Kṛṣṇa was in the lake, motionless within the coils of the black serpent. They further saw that the cowherd boys had fallen unconscious and that the animals were standing on all sides, crying out for Kṛṣṇa. Seeing all this, the residents of Vrindavan were overwhelmed with anguish and confusion. Commentary. This verse depicts the grief of the Gopas and Gopis. Seeing Kṛṣṇa trapped within the clutches of the serpent, the Vrajavasis inquired from the boys, "Tell us what happened. Did Kāliya forcibly drag young Kṛṣṇa from the shore into the water, or did Kṛṣṇa jump from the bank? Was this his idea or someone else's?" Noticing that the boys were actually unconscious and thus incapable of answering, Nanda and the other Vrajavasis entered a state of shock and panic. Okay, I think I'm going to end with this verse here. Gopyo nurakta manaso bhagavatyanante tatso hrida smita vilokya gira smarantya graste hina priyatame vrishadukka tapta shunyam priya vyatihritam tadrishush trilokam. When the young gopis, whose minds were constantly attached to Kṛṣṇa, the unlimited Supreme Lord, saw that he was now within the grips of the serpent, they remembered his loving friendship, his smiling glances, and his talks with them. Burning with great sorrow, they saw the entire universe as void. Commentary. This verse describes the anguish of the young damsels of Vraj who were attached to Kṛṣṇa in Madhurya Bhav. The word Bhagavati here means most beautiful, and Anante means filled with unlimited qualities. Seeing their most beautiful Kṛṣṇa, who is endowed with infinite attractive qualities, bound in the coils of the serpent, and remembering the love that Kṛṣṇa had for them, his gentle smiles, his furtive glances, and his loving prattles during their amorous affairs, the gopis saw the three worlds turn empty and meaningless. Due to the fire of separation from Kṛṣṇa, the entire universe burned to ashes. Okay, I'm going to read this verse also. But I want to stop before Kṛṣṇa breaks out of Kāliya's coils, because I think that's a good cliffhanger to leave on, right? Ta Kṛṣṇa mataramapattamanu pravishtam tulya vyatasamanugriya sucha sravantya tasta vraja priyakata tasta vraja priyakata katayantyasan Kṛṣṇa nerpita drishomritaka pratika Kṛṣṇa nerpita drishomritaka pratika. Although the elder gopis were feeling just as much distress as she and were pouring forth a flood of sorrowful tears, they had to forcibly hold back Kṛṣṇa's mother, whose consciousness was totally absorbed in her son. Standing like corpses with their eyes fixed upon his face, these gopis each took turns recounting the pastimes of the darling of Vraj. Commentary. Oops. This verse describes the distress of those in Vatsalya Bhav, parental love. Ṭha refers to the famous ladies of Vraj with children. In some editions of Bhagavatam, the word prataptam, torn apart, is used instead of pravishtam. This would mean that Yashoda was being torn apart upon seeing her son enwrapped in the serpent's coils. Then Yashoda entered the same states that her son appeared to be in and almost fainted. When Yashoda tried to jump in the Yamuna, the elder gopis forcibly held her back with their arms. Then they affectionately wiped the sweat and tears from Yashoda's face. To revive Mother Yashoda, the gopis loudly recited stories about the darling of Vraj. The elderly gopis drowned everyone in the waves from the rivers of their lamentation. The Amar Kosh dictionary states Suravanti means river. Thus everyone became paralyzed like corpses. Okay, let's finish with this verse. Kṛṣṇa pranam nirvishato nandadin. Wait. Kṛṣṇa pranam nirvishato nandadin vikshatam hradam pratyashedhat sa Bhagavan Rama Kṛṣṇa anubhavavit. Lord Balaram then saw that Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who had dedicated their very lives to Kṛṣṇa were beginning to enter the serpent's lake. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram fully knew Lord Kṛṣṇa's actual power, and therefore he restrained them. Commentary. Balaram physically held Nanda and others to keep them from jumping in the river, while saying, Gargacharya said that you'll be saved from all obstacles by this sun. Keeping this in mind, don't you think Kṛṣṇa will get released from this danger? Just be patient. If you all jump in the river and drown, who will maintain and raise Kṛṣṇa when he comes back? Not only that, you will be neglecting Garga's order to take care of the boy as well. This was Balaram's reasoning. Okay, so now Kṛṣṇa is all wrapped up in Kāliya's his coils, and all the Vrajvasis are trying to jump in the water but being stopped. And we'll find out what happens next tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribol. Jai Shri Guru Garanga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Maha Bhagavat Srila Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitila Pravishta Shila Satchitaranda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath. Shada Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Nama Acharya Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kāliya Damana ki jai. Shri Kṛṣṇa Kanaya ki jai. Shri Daubaya ki jai. Shri Viśvanānandini Śrīmati Radha Ṭhakurani ki jai. Shri Nanda Baba Yashoda Maya ki jai. Sarva Vrajavasi Gan ki jai. Shri Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki jai. Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Alright, so let's see. I'm going to try to do another live recording today. Sorry, not live. I'm going to try to do another pre-recording today. Oh, I didn't do. Vrindavan I'll Kṛṣṇa Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpataru Vyashta Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam. So, yeah, I will try to finish. I'm not going to finish I'm going to try to do another pre-recording today so that in 2 days from now, I'll still be able to go live while I'm on the train. And, but I might not finish the chapter. I don't know. Yeah, now is a bit of a crazy time for me right now. A lot of things to wrap up here in Navadvip before I leave. So, all right. Dandavat Pranams, everybody. See you all hopefully tomorrow. All right.